I still remember the first time I saw her, like a song I didn't know I'd been waiting to hear. It was a Thursday morning. Downtown Boston. Late September. That kind of soft chill in the air that smells like wood smoke and distant rain. I had ducked into a small cafe to avoid a sudden drizzle. The windows fogged just slightly, jazz spilling softly from a speaker in the corner. I ordered my coffee and sat near the back, just watching the world outside blur behind the glass. That's when she walked in. Red scarf. Light brown hair tucked beneath a gray beanie. Her coat was damp at the edges, like she'd just run through the rain without caring. She shook it off with a quick laugh and ordered a chai. I don't know how to explain it, but everyone else seemed to fade into the wallpaper. I couldn't stop looking at her. She caught me staring. Smiled. A week later, we had our first real conversation. Her name was Emily Carter. She was a documentary filmmaker, not the kind who just pointed a camera at things, but someone who listened. Someone who made the world seem softer by how she looked at it. She told me about a film she was editing on coastal towns that were slowly vanishing into the sea. I was a graphic designer, freelancing from place to place, never staying too long in one spot. She made me feel like maybe roots weren't such a bad thing. The first time I touched her hand was in a bookstore. She'd found an old, battered copy of a Pablo Neruda collection. We both reached for it. Our hands brushed. And she said, "I think poetry finds you when you need it." From then on, we were inseparable. Our days became something sacred. Slow mornings wrapped in blankets, reading aloud to each other from dog-eared novels. Long walks through the city, wandering alleys and laughing about nothing. Her voice had a rhythm to it, soft and steady, like waves pulling in. She smelled like cinnamon and lavender. She always hummed when she was thinking. I'd never believed in soulmates before her. But with Emily, it wasn't about fate, it was about choice. She chose me. Every day. I remember this one moment so vividly. It was raining again, of course. We were walking across the Longfellow Bridge at dusk, the Charles River gleaming below us. She stopped, looked at me and said, "Do you ever think this, all of this, might be the part we remember forever? The middle of something beautiful?" I kissed her in the rain. I couldn't help it. There were no grand declarations. No sweeping, cinematic score playing behind us. Just two people, in love, in a world that for once felt like it was finally making sense. In that moment, I believed in forever. But I didn't know that forever sometimes comes with a clock. And that sometimes, love is the beginning of a tragedy in disguise. It started small. Emily forgot things, a word, a date, where she left her phone. At first it felt normal. We laughed about it. I teased her once, "You've got too many thoughts in that beautiful head of yours." She smiled, but there was something distant in her eyes. Something I didn't catch at the time. Then came the headaches. They were brutal. Sudden. Like a storm behind her eyes. She'd wince mid-sentence and hold her temple like the world was splitting in two. I begged her to see a doctor. She brushed it off, "It's stress. I've been editing too much." She always tried to protect me from worry. But I could feel something wasn't right. One night, I found her standing barefoot in the kitchen. Just standing. Her tea had gone cold in her hand. When I asked what she was doing, she looked at me like I was a stranger. "I forgot why I came in here," she whispered. I didn't say anything, just wrapped my arms around her and held her close. But that night, I couldn't sleep. I lay awake staring at the ceiling, a weight settling in my chest I couldn't name yet. 2 weeks later, we sat in a cold, white office under buzzing fluorescent lights. The doctor spoke slowly, gently, like he'd said these words too many times before. Early onset neurological degeneration. I remember everything about that moment. The clock ticking behind him. Emily's hand tightening around mine. The way my mouth went dry. The doctor kept talking, scans, treatment plans, probabilities, but it all became static. My whole body felt like it had been dunked underwater. She didn't cry. She just sat there. Nodded. Asked a few questions. Her voice was steady, almost too steady. I think she was trying to protect me again. When we got home, she curled into my chest like a child. I held her and stroked her hair and whispered, "I'm not going anywhere. I promise." Over and over again. I meant it. But promises don't stop time. The weeks blurred. Some days were normal, beautiful, even. We'd dance in the living room to old vinyls. Watch movies and quote every line. She'd rest her head on my shoulder, and for a while, I could pretend we were okay. But then there were the other days. Days where she couldn't remember what month it was. Where she'd stare at a photo on the wall and ask, "Did we go there?" And it was our honeymoon picture. I started writing things down. Notes for her. Labels around the apartment. She laughed at first, called it our scavenger hunt. But I saw the way her fingers trembled when she read them. She was slipping away, piece by piece. Like a photograph left in the sun too long. One evening, she asked me, "If I forget you, will you still love me?" I couldn't answer. My throat was too tight. I just pulled her in and kissed her forehead. Then came the night everything changed. I woke up at 2 a.m., and the bed beside me was empty. Panic shot through me. I searched the apartment, nothing. My heart hammered in my chest as I ran outside into the cold. She was sitting on the curb down the block. Barefoot. In her nightgown. Staring at the sky. "Emily." I shouted, running to her. "What are you doing?" She looked at me confused. Then terrified. "Who are you?" That shattered me. I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't. I just sat on the floor of the bathroom and cried until I couldn't breathe. That was the night I realized. I wasn't just watching the woman I love fade. I was losing myself with her. I stopped answering calls. Stopped meeting friends. Stopped shaving. I let the apartment fall apart around me, piece by piece, like I was too tired to keep anything standing. Like holding Emily together took every last bit of strength I had, and I was still losing her. It's strange how quickly life can shrink. I used to care about deadlines, emails, groceries, the news. Now, all that mattered was whether she recognized me that day. Whether her eyes lit up with memory, or stayed empty like a hallway where the lights had gone out. Some mornings she woke up and smiled at me like nothing had changed. "Good morning, baby," she'd say, and kiss my cheek. And I would pretend that this was our normal, that we were just two people in love, and not two ghosts drifting in a body we used to share. Other days, she didn't know me at all. She'd ask me who I was. Ask where her parents were, even though they'd passed years ago. Once, she locked herself in the bathroom and called 911 because she thought I was a stranger in her house. I had to explain to the officer with shaking hands that she was sick. That I was her person, even if she didn't remember me. After that, I started sleeping on the floor outside the bathroom door. Just in case. I became someone else during that time. Or maybe I stopped being someone. I looked in the mirror one day and didn't recognize the man staring back. Pale. Sunken. Eyes like a moonless night. I was still there. But dimmed. Hollowed out. But I never gave up. Every morning, I made her tea the way she liked it. Every night, I tucked her in, even when she didn't want me to. I still told her I loved her, even when she stared at me like I was lying. Because I remembered. I remembered who she was. I remembered every stupid inside joke, every note she'd left on the fridge, every dance in the kitchen. I remembered the us that still existed in the corners of her mind, even if she couldn't find her way to it anymore. I began to document everything. Photos, videos, voice recordings. I made a giant scrapbook of our life, not for me but for her. So if there ever came a day when she didn't remember a thing, I could open it and say, "Look. This was real. You were loved. You are loved." But the weight of watching her vanish every day, it changed me. I started talking to myself. Whispering into the silence when she was asleep, as if God or time, or some higher force might answer me. "Please," I'd say. "Let her come back. Just for a little while." Sometimes, I hated the world. Hated that we had found something so good, so rare, only to watch it get ripped from our hands without mercy. And other times, I hated myself. For not being able to stop it. For not knowing how to hold on tighter. I was no longer the man who walked the city with her hand in mine. I was no longer the man who smiled at sunrises and believed in poetry. I had become a shadow, haunted by a love I could still feel, even when she couldn't. But there was one thing that never changed, not once. I refused to stop fighting. Because no matter how dark things got, I knew there had to be a reason. Something more. A truth buried beneath the silence. And I would find it. They said it was neurological degeneration. That word kept echoing in my head, like a verdict I wasn't allowed to question. But something didn't sit right. It wasn't just memory loss anymore. It was too erratic. Too fast. Some days Emily seemed almost lucid. Other days, she was lost in a fog so thick I couldn't reach her no matter what I tried. Then came the tremors. She'd grip the armrest of the couch, her hand shaking violently. Her vision blurred. One afternoon, she collapsed. I rushed her to the ER, again. The doctors ran the same tests. Told me the same things. Adjusted her medication. Sent us home. But I wasn't sleeping. I couldn't. I stayed up night after night, digging. Reading every medical article, every obscure journal I could find. I wasn't a doctor, but I knew Emily. I knew something else was happening. And then I found it. It was 2:13 a.m. I stumbled across an online thread, buried deep in a forum for caregivers. A woman described symptoms almost identical to Emily's. The memory loss, the confusion, the paranoia. But she mentioned something I hadn't considered, environmental toxins. My hands trembled as I read. She wrote about a rare exposure, long-term low-level contact with certain industrial cleaning agents. Things used in warehouses, old buildings, even old film labs. Film labs. My heart dropped. Emily had spent 2 years working on a documentary about abandoned industrial sites, places no one regulated anymore. She'd gone alone. Sometimes stayed overnight. She never thought twice about it. The next morning, I drove to her old storage unit, the one where she kept her backup hard drives and old film equipment. I hadn't been there since she got sick. Inside, the smell hit me first. Like paint thinner. Metallic. Sharp. There were dozens of unsealed chemical containers stacked in a corner. Broken gloves. An open box of tape reels labeled with fading handwriting. I took photos of everything. Collected samples in sealed bags. I didn't even know what I was looking for exactly, but I knew I was looking at the truth. That night, I emailed a toxicology professor at MIT. Then another at Columbia. I sent them everything. Begged them to look. To help. One of them replied. The testing confirmed it, chronic exposure to trichloroethylene, a chemical known to cause severe neurological damage over time. It had likely seeped into her system from poor ventilation and repeated contact during her editing sessions. This wasn't genetic. It wasn't fate. It was neglect. Someone had known those chemicals were left behind. Someone had let it happen. The building's owners. The safety inspectors. The city officials who signed off the permit years ago. I didn't feel angry. I felt alive. For the first time in months, I wasn't helpless. I wasn't fading. I was on fire. I lawyered up. Went public. I gave interviews, showed the test results, waved photos on national TV. Emily's name became a headline, not as a victim, but as the woman whose story might save lives. And I promised her, every night as she slept, that I would not let them bury this. I would not let them bury her. The city opened an investigation. Lawsuits were filed. Emergency protocols were rewritten. The lab site was shut down permanently. But it wasn't about revenge. It was about truth. About standing in front of the world and saying, she mattered. She still matters. I couldn't bring back the pieces she'd lost. But I could make sure they never did this to anyone else. And that was the beginning of something else. I used to be the kind of man who blended in. I liked quiet places, background music, soft colors. I hated conflict. I didn't raise my voice. I was the kind of person who apologized when someone else bumped into me. But when you watch the person you love disappear while the world shrugs its shoulders, something in you breaks. Or maybe, something wakes up. I was no longer that quiet man. I became obsessed, in a way that scared even me. I stopped taking freelance work. I stopped returning texts from friends asking if I was okay. I moved Emily's care team into the apartment. Nurses rotated shifts. I didn't want her in a facility, not while there was still some part of her that responded to the sound of my voice. Every spare hour, I hunted paper trails, archived permits, safety violations. I attended every city hearing, confronted every official who once ignored complaints about the film site. I became the man in the front row of the courtroom, unshaven, eyes burning, demanding answers no one wanted to give. And when that wasn't enough, I spoke to the press. I stood outside the courthouse steps and told our story again and again. I showed them photos of Emily before and after. I held up the Neruda book we'd once both reached for in that bookstore and said, "This woman changed my life. And your negligence destroyed hers." Strangers started showing up. People with similar stories. People who'd lost someone to sickness with no explanation. People who just wanted to help. Somewhere in that chaos, I realized, I wasn't doing this just for her anymore. I was doing it because love had made me more than I used to be. Love had sharpened me. Carved away the soft parts. Strengthened the bone beneath. I didn't care if people liked me. I cared about truth. About justice. About legacy. But there was a cost. The day I saw my own mother and didn't recognize her at first, that's when I knew. I had changed too much. I had pushed too far. I had wrapped my entire identity around the fight, because letting go felt like death. One night, after everyone else had gone to bed, I sat beside Emily in the dark. She was asleep, her breathing shallow but steady. The soft beep of the heart monitor was the only sound in the room. I held her hand and whispered, "You wouldn't even know me now." Her fingers twitched gently. A reflex, probably. But I chose to believe it meant something. Because the truth is, I had become someone else. I was no longer just her partner. I was her witness. Her protector. Her voice. I had lost almost everything, except the fire she left behind in me. And that fire, it changed me. Forever. The end came on a Wednesday. Gray skies. Quiet wind. The kind of weather that doesn't ask for attention, it just is. I had just finished reading to her Emily's favorite poem. Neruda, of course. Her eyes were closed, her breathing soft and fragile, like the world had to whisper not to wake her. I held her hand, just like I always did. And then, she let go. No gasp. No dramatic moment. Just stillness. I didn't cry at first. I just sat there. My hand still wrapped around hers, as if she might squeeze it again, even once. But she didn't. Her body was warm. Her spirit was already gone. I remember thinking, this is the moment people write about. The moment where your life splits in two. The before. And the after. I buried her on a hill overlooking the ocean. She had always said water made her feel connected to something bigger. Something eternal. I chose a simple stone. Just her name, and one word beneath it. Remember. It's been 2 years now. And yes, I remember everything. I remember how she used to laugh with her whole body, like she couldn't hold it in. I remember the way she looked at me when I was being stubborn, and how it always ended with a smile. I remember how she hummed when she was editing, like the rhythm of the world moved through her fingertips. I still hear her sometimes. In dreams. In memories. In the way light moves through trees during golden hour. There's this idea people have, that love is a thing that either fills you or breaks you. But they're wrong. Love does break you. But it also builds something new from the pieces. I am not who I was before Emily. I'm not the man who laughed without thinking or danced in kitchens just because the radio was on. That man died in stages, each time she forgot a piece of our life. But I became someone else. Someone deeper. Someone who understands that love is not about keeping, it's about giving. About showing up, even when the person you love doesn't remember your name. Sometimes people ask me if I would do it all again, knowing how it would end. The pain. The weight. The hollowed-out spaces in my chest that will never quite fill in. And I always say yes. Every time. Yes. Because the kind of love we had, the kind that makes you fight, makes you change, makes you burn, that love never really dies. It lingers. It echoes. It becomes you. And maybe that's what love really is. Not some fairy tale ending. Not a perfect life. But something deeper. A pain that stays, and in staying, reminds you that what you had was real. That what you gave mattered. That you were lucky enough to feel something so beautiful. It broke you. And that, I think, is the most human thing we can hope for. To be broken by love. Because only something that powerful can leave a mark that never fades. Subscribe, like, and tell people about this love.